I remember there was one time in Cachoeira, it was P Day. And so we were finishing up P Day, and we had a family home evening planned, and we were going to walk over to the branch president's house to have it there with the others that were invited. And we looked outside as it got closer to 6, and we're like, that looks pretty dark outside. Not sure what's going to happen. And moments before we were about to leave the apartment, it just started pouring and pouring, and the wind was blowing so fast that the palm trees were trying to kind of bend over a little bit, and it was super dark and lots of lightning and thunder, and I thought, I don't think we're going anywhere tonight. We would have, but as things were, it started blowing things around, and I'm pretty sure that was the same storm where it knocked out power in half of the city and also knocked out the water systems. So there were some people without light and water for a couple of days. So it was probably the craziest weather right there that I had experienced. But it wasn't always like that. We had some pretty crazy rainstorms, but that was probably the strongest one that I had been through. So the biggest thing that I wish I hadn't brought with me was the excess of P-Day clothes. So I had known that in the MTC we were going to have PE time like every single day. And I decided I was going to bring a different pair of clothes for each of those days because I wasn't sure when laundry day was going to happen, and I wasn't sure how much I was going to work out, so much that the clothes were kind of stinky and nasty. So I brought a lot of those clothes with me for exercising and things, and then I didn't really use all of them very much after that, and I wish I'd just sent them home from the MTC, but I didn't. So I had to carry them around the entire time, which was unfortunate, but it worked out in the long run. I was able to maintain my wardrobe fairly well and not have too much of an excess. There were sometimes I had a few extra boxes between transfers, but by the time I went home I had gotten rid of most of it, so that's a good thing. I was really glad that I had 3 pretty good walking shoes that I could rotate between, so that 1, they didn't get really stinky, and 2, they lasted longer. And you could have a little bit of a variety. And they all lasted me through my mission, so that's a good thing. I still have 2 of them. I use one of them occasionally, the other one I left at home on accident, but it works out pretty well. I think, at least for this mission, it gets really hot in the summer and really cold in the winter. It got over 100, 110 sometimes in the summers, and it was really hot. Bring an umbrella. An umbrella is a really helpful thing for in the summers, because I always thought that umbrellas were just for rain, but it's really nice in the summer so you can protect yourself from the sun. Also, I brought a lot of tights so that I could layer up, and we were able to wear leggings underneath our tights, so you can have a little bit of a thicker insulation, I guess, from the cold and the wind. The winter, it got down to like 40s, low 40s, maybe even 40 or just under 40 a couple of times. But it feels colder than that because of the humidity. So I would just say pack accordingly. The biggest spiritual highlights were when we were in lessons with someone who was finally getting it. Well, I finally understood or had the faith to understand that what we were saying was true and that they were going to act on it, whether they were going to pray or read the scriptures or decide to get baptized. It was just a really, really tender experience. There are several of those. I found out after I got home from my mission about the baptisms of 3 people that I had taught while I was on my mission. There was one in Cachoeira. His wife got baptized while I was in there, and I knew that he knew that it was true, but he just had to wait and decide until he knew for himself and decided for himself that he was going to get baptized. And that was about a year ago at this point, so about a couple months after I got home from my mission. And then in my last area, there was a family that we had taught. And it was with my last companion. And we taught this family. And there were a few times where I was so sure, like I could just feel that they were going to get baptized. I wasn't sure who or when, but I knew that they were going to. We had a family home evening with them once with the bishop. And we talked about love and how we want to share that love with others, and not just that love, but also joy. And when we were there and the bishop was talking and we had the family home evening, even though none of the family members were baptized yet at that point, I felt like they were an LDS family. Just based on the way that their dad, he had some problems with drinking, and we had some hard times with him at first, and he kicked us out of his house once, but he warmed up to us after that point, and he was a lot more forgiving, and he opened up the family home evening, and it felt like that they were LDS, and I thought something good is going to happen of this. And none of them got baptized while I was there, but about a few weeks after I got home, I got a message from the bishop saying that the mom got baptized. And about a month later, the daughter had gotten baptized. And just a few weeks ago, like a month or so ago, one of the sons got baptized. And it just makes me so happy to know that even though it wasn't while I was there, the seeds were planted and they were on their own search for happiness, and it's changed their lives, and they're so happy now, I can tell. And it's just, it's a really tender and wonderful feeling to have been part of that. The hardest experience I went through had to do with a companion. We were very different from one another. We had different ways of dealing with things, and we didn't really communicate very well one with another, which was unfortunate because that could have solved a lot of our problems if we had just opened up and talked a little bit more. It was kind of a trying time, just trying to be positive and be a good example. At those times, sometimes it was really hard to get myself out the door during those times. There were times where I was like, I just want to stay in my bed. I just want to stay inside and do nothing or something. And at those moments, I tried really hard to just say, nope, you got to get out there. Even if you're just walking around doing nothing, it's better than sitting around in your apartment doing nothing. So at least you're out there and you're trying to show your faith to get out there and work. And there were a few days where we just kind of wandered, and I didn't feel like talking or anything, and my companion didn't feel like talking. We just kind of wandered. But to me, I felt like it was better than just giving up entirely. Just like, come on, we got to get ourselves out there. We got to do it. And it took me a while. It took probably 3 months or so to kind of finally start getting out of that groove and start working upward again and get back to where I knew I could be. So it was a really hard time. But I also am glad that I had that time, because without it I wouldn't have learned the lessons that I learned, and I wouldn't be who I am right now. Well, there's one time that there was this one sister. She was really sweet, but she liked to experiment with foods, and I guess she liked to use the sisters as guinea pigs. And there's this one time she was trying to make a lasagna with bread dough instead of with the lasagna pasta, and the dough didn't cook all the way. So it was kind of this ooey gooey mess with a bunch of other toppings on it, and my poor companion, she couldn't finish it, but I finished it and I ate more, so that the sister felt okay and wasn't like, oh, but didn't you like it? Because it was bad practice to only eat one plate of food. If you didn't eat more than one plate, then it was kind of considered rude and that you didn't like the food. So you kind of had to really get seconds every day, every time you ate with someone, just so that you didn't hurt their feelings. And so I was kind of known by not necessarily all the sisters, but by my companions for sure, that if they couldn't finish it, that I could. Oh, there was also, I don't remember if it was cow stomach or cow tongue soup. It was kind of an interesting texture. I liked the rest of the soup, but I didn't really like the texture of the tongue or in stomach, whatever it was. I also tried liver for the first time on my mission, and the way that my companion made it was really good. But then we ate it at a member's house, and it wasn't nearly as good, and it kind of ruined it for me. But that's okay. I didn't ever make this mistake, but I know of some people that have. The words for coconut and poop are very similar. There's coco, which is coconut, and coco, which is poop. So if you put the accent on the wrong part of the word, then you get some pretty strange looks. Like, did you mean coconut, or did you actually mean poop? Anyway. That was when you kind of have to be careful of and watch out for. I miss the people and the food. That is probably, yeah, that's what it is, the people and the food. Especially the people that I met that were in the wards, or that were recent converts, or who are now converts, or just other investigators. There were some really sweet people that, even though they didn't progress or anything, they were really nice and kind and open and friendly, and the food is also a plus. When I was in Rio Grande, we got to know the síndico of our apartment. I think he's like the handyman, might have been the boss. I'm not exactly sure, but his name was Jubilar, and he laughed at me and my companion because we were either running or running faster every time we left the apartment. He's like, "Are you going 100 or 200 today?" Like kilometers per hour or something. Like, "We're going 200. And we were like, "See ya." He kind of watched out for us a little bit. And there was one day we got home after a long day of work, and we realized that the lights weren't working, and we realized what's going on here? We're not sure what's going on. We called the zone leaders and said, "Elders, our lights aren't turning off. Do you know what's going on?" He said, "I don't know, check on the financial secretary." So we called him, and he's like, "Elder, our lights are off. Do you know why?" I said, "Well, I can only imagine it has something to do with not paying, like, the bill or something, but I'm sure I paid it and everything." And we're like, "Well, I certainly hope so, because we're without light, and they're going to threaten that they were going to threaten us with, not necessarily with, they weren't going to threaten us, but if we broke the seal that was put over our electricity in the main part of the building, then we would have gotten a fine." And we're like, "Oh, we don't want to cause a fine to happen here. We're not sure what's going on, but we've got stuff in the fridge. We don't want it to go bad or anything." He said, "Well, I'll see what I can do." And it was like 9:30 at that point already. We're like, "Great, what's going to happen?" And so we run down and we talk to the síndico, and we're like, "Ubila, we're not sure what's going on. Our lights are out." And he's like, "Your lights are out?" And we're like, "Yeah, our lights are out." And he started to get really angry. He's like, "Okay, you get me, whoever's in charge of you, you get me on the phone. I'm going to talk to him right now." And we're like, "Okay, calm down. It's not that big of a deal." He's like, "But you girls can't be in there all by yourself in the dark. It could be dangerous. You guys have stuff you got to take care of. You've got your fridge, you got your lights, you got this, you got that." We're like, "Okay." Like, we're not sure who we're going to talk to. So we talked to the zone leaders. We're like, "Okay, we're not sure what's going on. We think it has to do with the bill needing to get paid, or a past bill needing to get paid. We're not sure." And so Rubila, he notices that we're talking on the phone. He's like, "Okay, hand me the phone. Let me talk to him." We're like, "This isn't the top guy. He's just someone who's here in town." He's like, "I don't care. Give me the phone." We're like, "Okay." So we hand him the phone, and he starts talking. He's really angry. "Calm down, Rubila. It's okay. It's okay." And he wanted us to just peel back the sticker and flip the switch and put the sticker back. We're like, "No, we can't do that. That's dishonest." He's like, "I don't care." He's like, "But we care. We don't want that to happen." It's like, okay. So for the night, he managed to get us a giant extension cord, and he had a light, one of those like free hanging lights that you plug in for like construction work or something, that he had in his little workshop, tool shop or whatever, and he gave us that and plugged it up to the main system of the building so that we could have light for the night. And I was like, this is really sweet of him. And he's like, like, don't let anyone know that this is here, but I just don't want you guys to be in the dark tonight. I'm like, thank you so much. That's really kind of you. So we had a lamp that night that we could use, and the next day the fridge was working and everything was working. So at some point during the night, the bill got paid for whichever bill it was. It got paid, and it was kind of interesting to see the other side of Outage, one that really cares about us. We didn't realize he cared that much about. So it was kind of fun. So I had just been transferred to my last area, to Guaíba, and I was there with my brand new companion. We had only been together a half a day, and we had our district meeting the next day. And so it was Wednesday. So it was my first full day in the area. We'd gotten back from our district meeting and we went to lunch, and then my companion during the planning that we had the night before, she said, so there's going to be a sister that's going to go and do some visits with us this afternoon. I was like, okay, great, that'll be wonderful. And my companion told me that she'd been kind of quiet. She was kind of timid, but they had this this missionary night where they had the ward members come and they did kind of a mini training. The missionaries and the bishop did this mini training with them. Like, okay, this is how you go up and do a contact. This is how you just start talking to people about the gospel. And then we would pair off and go and hand out like Mormon.org cards or other handouts for like a Book of Mormon or for a video or any one of those things, and to go get like names and numbers and addresses for people that we could potentially go back and visit. And my companion had gone on visits with this sister in the ward that Sunday, and she said it was very, very eye-opening, and that she was it wasn't that she was quiet and timid, that's just kind of her personality. But when she was in those areas, she would share her testimony and she'd just talk to those people, and she was really good. And I thought, this is going to be wonderful. We'll have someone with us. And so from about 2 p.m. to about 9 p.m., she went on these visits with us. And when we first got started, it was so hot. We were all going to die. We thought, okay, we didn't bring enough water, we didn't bring enough sunscreen, and we don't have an umbrella. What are we going to do? And about half hour into our visits, there was some cloud cover that started coming. We thought, is it going to rain? Is it really going to rain? And a few minutes after that, it started to rain. And we considered it a great blessing. But after we left one person's house, we started walking on the roads. The sister, she said, so sisters, before we left, I had prayed that we would have some cooler weather, some nicer weather, so it wasn't super hot outside and that we wouldn't die of heat outside. And I thought, that's just really sweet that she had thought enough to pray about that, and that God had answered her simple prayer so that she could go on these visits with us. And it was just a really, really sweet testimony of prayer that she helped me to recognize. It was really a sweet experience.